All right, I'm going to call the Board Finance Subcommittee meeting to order at 5:55. And the first item on the agenda is a review of the 2021-22 original budget. I provided each of you with a packet of the budget. And I'm basically going to run through the budget kind of page by page, but kind of gloss over a few of the items. The second page is really the one with a lot of the detail on that I'll spend most of my time with, but that's what I'm going to go through. On the first page is a summary of the general fund budget. I'm going to spend most of my time in the Boxton area, which is labeled the 2021-20 budget. As you can see, we're looking at projecting total revenues about $172.6 million, which is a drop of about $8.6 million. I'll go into a lot more detail into what that change is all about. And mainly it's about the ESSER funds and the CARES Act funds, the state and federal funds that we received this year that we're not budgeting for next year. If you go further down, you can see total expenditures were projecting about $168.2 million, which is a drop of about $11.9 million from the second amended budget that you adopted back in May. So we're looking at revenues exceeding expenditures by about $4.4 million. Now, one of the caveats that I'm going to talk about in this is the expenditures do not project any additional wage increases. So right now we're currently negotiating with all of our labor groups. We have not projected any additional expenses for any of the labor groups into next year. So any type of steps, any type of wage or salary improvements, none of that is in the expenditures. So basically it's a baseline budget of what our current year, what we project next year's base wages and benefits to be.
Mr. Sutherland, so what was our fund equity? What was the percentage of our fund equity at the end of this year?
So at the end of this year, we're projecting our fund equity to be about $31.1 million. So as a percentage of expenditures, that would be, doing it real quick without doing it in my head, would be about 17.2%.
Okay, and then what would it be on your projected budget with expenditures at $168 million?
So again, right now we have revenues projected to exceed expenditures by about 4.4 million. So that would take our fund equity from the 31.1 million up to the 35.5 million. So if you take 35.5 million divided by the 168, it would be about 21%.
Okay, thank you.
But again, remember that does not include any type of wage improvements moving into next year. So that's where we sit right now. I'll go to the second page, which will give you a lot more detail of the projections that we used for both revenues and expenditures. So on the second page, for revenue adjustments at the top of the page, you can see that we're looking at a budgeted enrollment decrease of about 104 students from the October 2020 school year count. That would produce just under $900,000 reduction in revenues. The change in the super blend, right now, both the governor and I believe the Senate budget has the super blend, which is our current year funding, at 70% of its funding level for this year. So that would drop our revenue by about $2.1 million. And then I use the governor's proposed per pupil increase of $164 per pupil, which would take our per pupil level to $8,275. That generates about $2.4 million of additional revenues. The current year budget also has an equity payment of $65 per pupil That is in none of the budgets moving forward. So that roughly $1 million obviously has to come out of our current revenues. With our enrollment decline, our special ed funding is going to go down. We're projecting a little over 400,000. And then one of the things that I failed to mention, this budget assumes that we are going to be back to a normal traditional school year, meaning face-to-face, start of next school year. So all of our fee-for-services, our preschool, our community education, our athletic gates and school-age childcare and our paid participation fees, we're bringing them all back to a normalized level that we would typically expect. So that's roughly about $2.1 million additional. The retirement flow-through money, which is the section 147C, we're estimating that's going to go up about $1.5 million. And again, that's just a flow through. So if you look further down under expenditures, that same $1.5 million increase is both in the revenues and the expenditures. So it washes. And then the largest variance in our budget is obviously our grants. We're projecting that to go down about $10.1 million. And that's mainly the CARES money and the ESSER 1 funds that we received this school year that we mainly used for the one-to-one computers and things like that. So what we've done in that is we've reduced both the revenues and expenditures for that, and then the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds that still are not allocated as of today. When we finally get those allocations, we'll update our budget come October, November timeframe to incorporate those revenues and whatever expenses are tied to those at that time. And then all other revenues are down about 182,000. So net, when you look at all of those changes, that's where you get the reduction of about $8.6 million in total revenues. From an expenditure standpoint, the net staffing wage changes are down about $3.6 million. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there are no labor agreement settlement costs in this budget. It incorporates the 60 teachers that we have retiring this year. And then I've also reduced all of the one-time lump sum fees that we've paid through our labor groups. I've reduced those out of our budget because obviously we don't have an agreement to pay those for next school year. The voluntary retirement incentive, the first year payment of that is the $1.2 million that you see budgeted under expenditures. The healthcare increase in the cash in lieu of health increase of just under 500,000. That's roughly the 3.7% of what the hard cap figure has been set at for next school year. And then both retirement expense and FICA expense are down roughly $2.8 million, and that's pretty much directly tied to the wage changes. I mentioned the MIPSers offset funds, the in and out. There's the 1.5 million for that. Then, obviously, going back to a normalized school year, our community education purchase services were increasing back up to its normal level, which is an additional 200,000. Our departmental budget restoration, if you recall, back in the Second Amendment in May, there were a lot of funds, that $460,000 worth of funds that many departments weren't projected to spend because of the year that we had. We reduced those expenditures in May, obviously to bring them back up to whole. We're restoring those budgets back up to up an additional 460,000 to get it back at the normalized area. Kind of the potpourri, security services, property casualty insurance, utilities, bus fuel, helmets, those budgets were increasing about $500,000. Again, increases in security service costs. Our property and casualty insurance actually went up about 10% this year, which is the first time we've seen an increase, I think, in 4 years. Utility costs, We're going to be utilizing our buildings more next year, more than we did this year. So we have to increase those costs. And then bus fuel. Obviously, we're going to be transporting kids more next year than this year. So that's where those costs come from. The grants, as I mentioned, we're lowering the expenses in the grant area by about $10.1 million. That's mainly the CARES Act and ESSER funds. And then all other expenditures in the budget, outside of the ones I mentioned, total a net of about $250,000 increase. So when you look at all of those areas and you net them together, it's a reduction in expenditures of about $11.9 million. Are there any questions on the second page?
Yes, how did we come up with the 104 enrollment decrease?
So when I budgeted for this current school year, obviously this school year among all is one of the craziest we've ever experienced, obviously. What I did was for the budget, I used our staffing numbers. So what the enrollment that we use based upon what we staffed on is what I used for the enrollment projection. And my reasoning behind that was by using that number, if we have more kids come in and register in the summer, that may produce more expenses to have to hire teachers. If we don't have any, we are going to have more new kids.
Mm-hmm.
I basically balanced our enrollment with what we staffed at. I figured that was probably the best thing that I could do. Again, I think when you look at this, it's kind of ironic when you think about we're legally prescribed by law to have a budget done and approved by July 1 of every year. And yet we don't have a state budget yet. We don't know what our enrollment is yet. We have an idea of what staffing is, but the staffing is based upon current levels and does not include anything that happens over the summer. So I don't know if the word is ironic or what exactly that word is, but it's surprising that we're legally required to have this budget adopted, and yet it's probably the greatest variance in projections of any of our budgets. All right, moving to the third and fourth page. Third and fourth page is just a little more detail on the revenue changes. I kind of went through a high level on page 2 that talked about the major changes. This gives you a little more information on where the changes occurred between the local, state, and federal levels, so that you can see where all of the modifications and all of the changes occurred with our revenue budget. Page 4 is just a summary of our grants, changes in grants. And again, you can see from a federal level and state level, there's the vast majority of the reduction in grants is all the ESSER CARE money and the CARES Act money. Then moving to the last page, which is a different way of looking at our expenditures, which is a summary of expenditure changes by object level, which is part of the state accounting manual. We looked at the major areas of the budget when it comes to wages, benefits, purchase services, and then all other expenses. And you can see that from the wage standpoint, overall wages we're projecting will be down about $5.3 million. And you can see from the tables below, I have more description of each one of the major categories. Benefit-wise, we're up about $500,000. Purchase services, we're up about $200,000. And then supplies are down about $7.3 million. So if you look at under table A, under wages, you can see the vast majority of the largest portion of the changes there are the teachers. That is to incorporate the retirement of teachers and also to reduce the live streaming payment that was made. So when you look at the overall reduction, the total wages are down roughly about $5.3 million. Benefit-wise, I mentioned the retirement and FICA being tied to the wages, healthcare and cash in lieu. Those increased budgets are basically, again, tied to the 3.7% increase in the hard cap. And then you can see the VRIP budget of $1.2 million. So the net changes in the benefits are roughly just under $500,000. Under the purchase service category, sub costs under special services, we have going down about $355,000 because of the struggles that we've had hiring certain positions in the special services area. We obviously paid for those. We had to contract some of those services out. And so we're reducing those budgets and then budgeting for those vacant positions under wages. So while you'll see a $355,000 reduction under the purchase services, we have budgeted for those vacant positions in the wages. So there's not a true savings of $355,000. It's just a shift of expenses. Custodial subs are down about $48,000. Again, we're budgeting for those to be replaced under our employees or wages. Departmental budgets I mentioned, community education I mentioned, security services and our property and casualty insurance. You can see those changes. So overall, when you look at the purchase services, we are up about just under $200,000. When you look at Table D, which is the supplies and materials and all other expenses, the food service and school-age childcare transfer, those were funds that were used to support each of those two areas for this school year because of the struggles, obviously, that we had in both of those areas that we won't have for next year because of the pandemic. You can see the natural gas and electric cost increases. The student laptops, those budgets are obviously going to be eliminated because with those purchases we did this year under the grant fund, so that $6.8 million is not being budgeted for next year. Same with the PPE supplies. And you see the bus fuel, the departmental budgets, and then football helmets. I believe this is the 10th year for a large portion of our football helmets, and they're only certified to use for 10 years, so we have to have a replacement for those. So overall, the net change in the supplies, materials, and other budget is a reduction of about $7.3 million. So overall, it's based upon the information that we, I guess, don't have. This is a budget that I think is at least somewhat fair, but it definitely doesn't depict what our true revenues and expenditures will be next year. Once additional information comes from the state, obviously, about our per pupil funding level, we know where our enrollment is comes in over the summer, and then obviously having labor agreements done and moving forward will obviously help with our expenditure projections. So that's where we sit with the budget. I don't know if you have any questions about any of the budget information that I presented. All right, then our next under other, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Chambers from Plant Moran to just go over the pre-audit communication that was sent to you in your board packet and spend 5 or 10 minutes going through that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate some time on your agenda tonight. You should have received the pre-audit communication in your board packet, and that'll really be what we're going through just to give you an update on the audit process. I know I've spoken with each of you in the past, but just for those others who are listening, my name is Jennifer Chambers. I'm your engagement partner for the audit with Plant Moran. We are commencing the audit process, have gone through various planning discussions with Mr. Sutherland and his staff in anticipation of the June 30 year-end audit. As part of the planning process for the audit, we are required to communicate with those charged with governance. And so your role on the finance subcommittee is really that opportunity for us to have a dialogue around what is being planned for the audit, provide you just a refresher of what our responsibilities are, and make sure that if you have any questions or items that you would like integrated into the audit, that we get that information from you so that as we continue to plan and design the procedures that will perform in August, that we make sure that we take those into account. This year, with regards to the audit, there's no significant changes in any accounting standards. And so really, it should be pretty similar to the type of audit that you've experienced in the past. Obviously, the biggest thing, and it was clear as Mr. Sutherland presented the budget, is the influx of the federal funding with the emergency response funds. That really has provided probably the biggest risk area coming into this annual audit. And as it relates to your financial statements, the risk lies in revenue recognition. So really the grants that Mr. Sutherland mentioned are not yet appropriated. There's a risk that the timing of when that gets awarded needs to make sure that that dictates which fiscal year that gets recognized in. So if those are not awarded by June 30th, then they will be fiscal 22 revenues. But there's a risk to districts that you may or may not recognize that in the correct period. So that is one of the risks from a financial statement perspective that we'll be looking for to make sure that that revenue has been treated appropriately. When we switch gears over to the federal grants, remember we audit your financial statements and then we also audit your federal grants in a separate audit. This year we will be testing your Coronavirus Relief Fund, which is CRF, and also the Education Stabilization Fund. And within there, that's where your ESSER 1 funds come through. So really the two grants that we'll be testing this year are those two grants. It's a higher risk environment because these are new grants to everyone, all districts. And so there is an elevated risk with the federal programs audit as well. But we feel very confident thus far in what we've worked with Mr. Sutherland and his staff on in terms of their understanding of administering those programs. But just to make sure that you're informed of that as well, that is one of the risk areas that we'll be looking at too. It's a new arena with a lot of these new federal funds coming through. The other thing I just wanted to mention to you is that we did perform our interim procedures last week. This is where we perform some of the preliminary grant testing, as well as take a look at the district's internal controls. And at this point, we feel that the audit is progressing well, and we feel poised with Scott and his team to complete the audit in August. At this point, I'd be looking to you to see if you have any immediate questions for me. I'd also point out that in the letter, my contact information is there. And so if there are questions about the audit or items that you'd like me to expand upon, you're always welcome to contact me.
All right. Any questions? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yep. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Are any other questions or comments? All right, then it is 6:18 and the Board Finance Committee is adjourning at 6:18.
Welcome. I'd like to call to order the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education meeting for June 21st, 2021. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And it'll be 6:31, Ms. Adlin. Thank you. Okay. Hello, Denise. I'd like to excuse Mr. Sobal this evening from our board meeting. Move on to item B, additions and deletions. There is none for this evening. Item C, breakfast program hearing. Okay. Okay, we will open this hearing at 6:33 p.m. Yeah, I just have some things to read here. As a participant in the National School Lunch Program, program regulations in the state of Michigan law require that a breakfast program meeting established criteria be offered to all Chippewa Valley schools K-12 buildings. Buildings with free reduced applications totaling less than 20% of enrollment in October 2020 are not mandated in offering a breakfast program that is in compliance with applicable regulations in 2021-2022. Buildings with applications totaling more than 20% of enrollment in October 2020 that are mandated to offer a breakfast program in 2021-22 are Cherokee Elementary, Clinton Valley Elementary, Erie Elementary, Fox Elementary, Huron Elementary, Miami Elementary, Mohawk Elementary, Ojibwa Elementary, Ottawa Elementary, Algonquin Middle School, Iroquois Middle School, Wyandotte Middle School, Chippewa Valley's 9th grade center, Chippewa Valley High School, and Mohegan High School. The purpose of this hearing is to receive comments on the district not providing a breakfast program meeting established criteria in district buildings having less than 20% of enrollment, meeting eligibility requirements for free or reduced price lunches. Are there any comments?
Mr. Bednard, I have a comment.
Ms. Piden?
So it's my understanding that we will not be offering breakfast at Cheyenne, Mohawk, Sequoia, or Shawnee. Is that correct, Mr. Sutherland?
That is not correct.
Oh.
We will be offering that, but we are not mandated to offer it.
Okay, but
we will be voluntarily offering.
Okay, so we
yes.
will have it at all of our buildings.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And for further point of clarification, if I may, Mr. Sutherland, how long has the district been offering these lunches at all our buildings, even though we're not mandated to?
I want, off the top of my head, I want to say this upcoming year is either the 3rd or 4th year that it's being offered at all buildings.
Okay.
We made that decision 3 or 4 years ago to offer it at all, not
So-
just the mandated ones.
So nothing's changed from previous few years?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call this hearing to an end at 6:35 p.m., 6:35. Okay, 2021, 2022 budget public hearing. This hearing is beginning at 6:36 p.m. State of Michigan law requires that Michigan school districts adopt budgets for the next fiscal year prior to the start of the fiscal year. Before adopting the budgets, a public hearing must be conducted. The purpose of this hearing is to receive comments on the proposed general fund, food service fund, athletic fund, building activities fund, CTE fund, and Macomb International Academy fund budgets for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, and to receive comments on the levy of 18 mills on non-homestead property for operating purposes for the general fund. Are there any comments? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close this hearing. This hearing is closed at 6:37. Okay, we'll move on to item D, budget hearing. Just did, so we'll make that item E. Recognition presentations, Mr. Roberts.
There is nothing this evening.
Okay. Okay, item F, general consent agenda. Can we have a motion to approve the general consent agenda?
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Domingue-Zak,
I'll second.
support by Ms. Pyden. Anything on the general consent agenda that members would like to have removed, comment on? Further discussion about? Hearing none, all those in favor, Ms. Pyden, could you roll call vote, please?
Sure. Ms. Domingue-Zak? Myself, yes. Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Ms. Aquino? Yes. Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Okay. So there's got-
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Bednar, I just, with the consent agenda, we do have some teachers here this evening that were hired. So we had Taylor Neubauer, and maybe a couple are here. Just raise your hand if you're one. I think there were a couple here. Deanna Ray, Michael Sauer. Is Michael here? Angela Terranova. Is Angela in there? No, maybe I'm wrong on this. And Jennifer Levetter. Is Jennifer here? Okay, I was wrong. They are not here this evening, so. But congratulations to those teachers for being hired for the start of next school year.
Yes, welcome to our district and our community.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to G, old business. We have none for this evening. Moving on to H, new business. H1, approved personal transaction, hire of an administrator director of CTE, Mr. Roberts.
Recommended motion that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the appointment of Ms. Keena Goolsby to the position of Director of Career Technical Education. Effective start date is July 19th, 2021.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Pyden,
I'll support.
supported by Dr. Andriasco. Rationale, please.
Ms. Keena Goolsby is being appointed to fill a vacancy created by a retirement, and she meets all the qualifications specified in the posting. And I know Keena is, oh, you got a vote.
Where is she?
Sorry. We got a vote. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
is that her?
Questions, comments by the board?
No, I just say welcome to the district.
Okay.
Oh, I do have one question. Is Claire, when is her last day? Claire's last day, or has it already happened?
And she's June 30th.
Okay, so will she or someone be able to transition Ms. Goolsby when she arrives on the 19th?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that transition plan.
Okay, thank you.
There are people in that department who have been there, so
Okay,
there will be support.
all right, thank you.
Further questions or comments by the board? Hearing none, all those in favor, roll call vote, please, Ms. Pyden.
Myself, yes. Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Ms. Aquino?
Yes,
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Ms. Domingue-Zak?
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich?
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
right.
Welcome, Ms. Goolsby.
Keena, why don't you come over to the microphone so you can introduce yourself? That'd be great. And I know as board members, you received information in the board packet about the hiring process, and it is very thorough. And on my behalf, Keena, was a pleasure to interview, not only knowledgeable, but a great attitude. And I know Keena has worked over the last 11 years as a school administrator, and she's currently the program supervisor for CTE in the Detroit Public Schools. So, Keena, I'll leave it there, and if you want to say a few words, you're welcome to.
Oh, well, thank you, Superintendent Roberts, and as well as the Chippewa Valley School District. It's an honor and wonderful privilege to serve everyone in this position. And so I am most definitely looking forward to actually bettering our partnerships and working relationships with parents, staff, and students. And yes, I'm looking forward to this wonderful opportunity. So thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome to Chippewa.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Okay, welcome. Welcome Chippewa Valley. Okay, next up, we're going to move on to H2, Approve Personnel Transaction, Hire Administrator, Director of Pupil Transportation, Mr. Roberts.
Recommended motion that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the appointment of Mr. Malin Williams to the position of Director of Pupil Transportation. Effective start date is July 12th, 2021.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Aquino,
I'll support.
support by Ms. Demik-Zek. Rationale, please.
Mr. Williams is being appointed to fill a vacancy created by a retirement, and he meets all the qualifications specified in the posting.
Questions or comments by the board?
I would just say both of these candidates had very full resumes, very impressive resumes. So welcome.
Okay, roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Ms. Demik-Zek,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Eyes all. Welcome, Mr. Williams.
Yep. Is he here?
Mr. Williams works in Buchanan, Michigan, which is over near the Indiana-Michigan border, and he is not here right now. But I do want to say the same. It's a very thorough process. I had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Williams. He has a lot of experience in both the private and public sectors.
Right.
He's worked for 2 school entities as the supervisor of transportation. He's a military vet, and he also performed duties related to transportation in the military. And if I ever met a person who through the pores in their skin oozed transportation and the challenges and joy of moving people around efficiently, effectively, and safely, it's Mr. Malin Williams. So I think we're really fortunate. With all these hires this evening, I want to commend our HR department and educational services for all their work to find us these people and allow the cream to rise to the top there. So maybe Mr. Williams will get here later. So I thought maybe he rescued a greyhound along the road and jump-started it and he's on his way. So we'll see.
Okay, well, congratulations to Mr. Williams. Welcome to Chippewa Valley Schools. All right, moving on to H3, Approved Personnel Transaction, Hire of an Administrator, Executive Director of Innovation and Learning. Mr. Roberts.
Recommended motion that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the appointment of Dr. Karen Langlands to the position of Executive Director of Innovation and Learning. Effective start date is June 22nd, 2021.
Motion, please. Moved by Ms. Demik-Zek,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Pyden. Rationale.
Dr. Langlands is being appointed to fill a vacancy created by a retirement, and she meets all the qualifications specified in the posting.
Fantastic. So, okay, roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please. If there's no questions or comments by the board.
Ms. Demik-Zek,
Yes.
myself, yes. Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Eyes all. Congratulations, Dr. Langlands.
Dr. Langlands, if you want to come over to the
Welcome.
mic, that would be great. What Dr. Langlands doesn't realize is that it says June 22nd, 2021, which is tomorrow. She thought that was June 22nd, 2022, and she was going to go on a world cruise for a year. Sorry, it's tomorrow. Dr. Langlands is no stranger to our district. She's worked here since the late 1990s, and she's had much experience in leading in curriculum development in language arts. And so she brings much knowledge in that area and how our curriculum process works to our district. So congratulations, Karen, and go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the board and Superintendent Roberts for this wonderful opportunity. I'm very excited. I'd also like to thank my colleagues and Mr. Kozlowski. He's been an excellent leader. I'm looking forward to working with Dr. Broski and the Educational Services Department. And I'm just very excited to continue to help move our district forward.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, excellent. Congratulations. Forward to having you in our innovation and learning area for this district. So thank you. Okay, we'll keep moving. H4, approved personal transaction. Hired administrator, instructional technology coordinator, Mr. Roberts.
Recommended motion that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the appointment of Ms. Dawn Barrett to the position of Instructional Technology Coordinator. Effective start date is June 22nd, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Aquino,
I'll support.
supported by Dr. Andriasco. Rationale, please.
Ms. Barrett is being appointed to fill a new vacancy, and she meets all the qualifications specified in the posting.
Questions, comments by the board? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar,
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zek,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Eyes all, congratulations, Ms. Barron.
Yep.
Okay. Dawn, too, has worked in our district, I think, about maybe 23 years. I think I'm pretty close. Much middle school experience, both in math and science, and much experience as a curricular leader, which is so important to what we do, because technology is one thing. What is the key to all of this in our minds is the integration of technology as a learning tool into subject areas. It's not technology for the sake of technology. It's for the sake of learning our curriculum. So Dawn, if you'd like to come up and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dawn Barrett. I would just first like to say thank you to the board and to Mr. Roberts for this wonderful opportunity. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Kozlowski for his wonderful leadership and for setting the stage for how I would like to continue as an administrator in this district. I'm very excited to work for Sarah Monyer-White and with Amy Yednock and this instructional team, because I feel like this is a very important initiative in our district. I'm excited to use my expertise to continue to move our district forward. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. Welcome and good luck. Not really welcome. You've been in our family here at Chippewa Valley Schools for a number of years. So, but congratulations on your new positions. We look forward to working with you. Okay, H5, approved personnel transaction. Hire of an administrator and instructional technology coordinator, Mr. Roberts.
Recommended motion that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the appointment of Ms. Lauren Crumholz to the position of instructional technology coordinator. Effective start date is still to be determined.
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Aquino. Support by Ms. Demink. Rationale, please.
Ms. Crumholz is being appointed to fill a new vacancy, and she meets all the qualifications specified in the posting.
Questions or comments by the board? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote? Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zek,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Eyes all, congratulations, Ms. Crumholz.
Congratulations.
Lauren cannot be here this evening. We do have her online, though. Lauren works right outside of Indianapolis, Indiana, with the Perry Township Public Schools. And she currently, in her job there, does what we would like her to do here, and that is to work as an instructional technology specialist. Our title might be different. We call it a coordinator. But Lauren is no stranger to this area, as she's a graduate of the Lance Crew schools, and so she grew up very close to here, and she's come over to the right side next year. So if we can we bring Lauren in on the? She's on. Okay, Lauren, go ahead. I think we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Very well,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to thank the Chippewa Valley Board and Superintendent Roberts for this opportunity. I also want to thank everyone that supported me through this process. I've always had plans of returning to Michigan, and with this new position, we'll be able to return to Michigan doing what I love, which is sharing my passion for technology and education while learning with others. And I'm super excited to be a part of this team, and I can't wait to see what new things we can share to help others in this district.
All right.
Well, welcome, Mrs. Kuhnholz. We're glad you're coming back to Michigan, and we look forward to great things from this new and exciting era that our district is moving into. So thank you for being part of it. Welcome. Okay, thank you. H6, approve personnel transaction, hire of an administrator, instructional technology coordinator. Mr. Roberts.
Recommended motion that Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the appointment of Ms. Jessica Thole to the position of Instructional Technology Coordinator. Effective start date is June 22nd, 2021.
Move.
Moved by Ms. Quino,
I'll support.
supported by Ms. Pyden.
Was Dr.
No, that was
Dr.
Dr.
Andriasco.
Andriasco.
Okay. Rationale, please.
Ms. Thole is being appointed to fill a new vacancy, and she meets all the qualifications specified in the posting.
Questions, comments by the board? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Pyden, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zak,
Yes.
myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich,
Yes.
ayes all. Congratulations, Ms. Thole.
All right. Jessica, you can come up. Jessica Thole has worked in our school district, I believe it's 7 years, is that right? 7, am I on? Okay, and she's been an art teacher both at the middle level and at the elementary level. And I think that's a good combination. I mean, I know Amy Yednock in that department already was an art teacher, and there's something about art teachers and technology. It's a beautiful fit. You've also been a graphic illustrator? Designer?
I actually worked in advertising prior to becoming a teacher. I was an art director for an ad agency.
Very good. And for the last 2 years, she's been an instructional tech coach in our district, so she knows the lay of the land. So go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you to the board, and thank you Superintendent Roberts for this amazing opportunity. I also want to give a special thanks to Walt Kozlowski, Sarah Monier-White, and Amy Yednock, 3 people who have been an honor to work for and with over the last 2 years, and I have learned so much from them. I'm very, very excited to start this new journey, and I can't wait to see and be a part of the amazing things that I know this new team will accomplish over the upcoming years going one-to-one, especially this fall. Thank you again for the opportunity.
You are
All right,
welcome.
thank you.
Okay,
If I
thank you.
If I
Thank you,
could
Ms.
just make it,
Thole.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, and congratulations on this new position. I look forward to great things. Okay, we'll move on to H7. Approved change order summary report, May 2021. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the 2018 bond issue change order summary report for the month of May 2021.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Moved by Dr. Andriasco,
I'll support.
supported by Ms. Aquino. Rationale, please, Mr. Sutherland.
This work consists of changes to existing contracts for the purpose of owner-requested work, deducts, code compliance, or hidden conditions on the construction and equipment projects. All amounts are within the contingency budget allocation.
Yeah.
This report was reviewed with the Building and Site Subcommittee on Monday, June 7th, 2021, and funding will come from the 2018 Building and Site Fund.
Okay, questions, comments by the board?
I would say that what I was going to say is this was reviewed in depth at the Building and Site meeting, and this change order meets the specifications for the change orders for the district based on changing requirements from the bid process.
Okay. No other further comments or questions? All those in favor, let's hear a roll call vote. Ms. Pyden.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zak.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Excellent. H8, approved 2021-2022 breakfast program. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the breakfast program for the 2021-2022 school year as follows. Buildings with free reduced applications totaling less than 20% of enrollment in October 2020 are not mandated in offering a breakfast program that is in compliance with applicable regulations in 2021-22. Buildings with applications totaling more than 20% of enrollment in October 2020 that are mandated to offer a breakfast program in 2021-22 are Cherokee Elementary, Clinton Valley Elementary, Erie Elementary, Fox Elementary, Huron Elementary, Miami Elementary, Mohawk Elementary, Ojibwa Elementary, Ottawa Elementary, Algonquin Middle School, Iroquois Middle School, Wyandotte Middle School, Chippewa Valley Ninth Grade Center, Chippewa Valley High School, and Mohegan High School.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Pyden,
Support.
supported by Ms. Aquino. Rationale, please.
School districts are mandated to offer a breakfast program that is in compliance with the USDA and State of Michigan regulations in all buildings unless the district determines after conducting a public hearing to not offer the breakfast program in buildings where free and reduced price applications total less than 20% of the building enrollment. While not mandated, the district also provides breakfast at Dakota High School, Seneca Middle School, Cheyenne Elementary, Sequoia Elementary, and Shawnee Elementary.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote there. Ms. Pyden, please.
Myself, yes. Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zak.
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Very good. Okay, moving on to H9, approved breakfast and lunch prices for 2021-22. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve breakfast and lunch prices effective for the 2021-2022 school year as follows.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Zink, supported by Dr. Andriasco.
Okay.
Rationale.
The above prices have been the same as they were for the last 8 school years dating back to the 2013-2014 school year. The district is still awaiting guidance from MDE regarding the parameters for those students who qualify for free lunch for the 2021-2022 school year.
Questions or comments by the board?
Is that-
Yeah. Oh,
go
go ahead.
This next.
Is that free lunch and free breakfast we're waiting on?
Correct.
Okay.
What we're hearing from the federal government is that they're extending the free program to all students, regardless of whether they qualify or not, for all of next school year. The big question is how that is going to be rolled out. So we're still awaiting some guidance. They say by the end of this month, we should have something.
I have a question also. It's so, I don't mean hard to believe, but it's exciting that we don't have to raise prices even though the cost of goods is skyrocketing at this point. So I'm sure that doesn't mean that we're going to be making any cuts in terms of how we prepare meals and whatnot. I assume that's true, right?
Correct.
All right.
Yes. we're very fortunate to have a very efficient and well-run food service program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, having no more questions or comments, roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Demink Zak,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes,
Mr. Bednard,
Yes.
myself, yes, Mr. Vojtovich,
Yes.
ayes all, motion carries.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Roberts, do you have a comment?
Sure. Our transportation director has arrived, so I want to introduce him. So we have Mr. Malin Williams, and Malin's here. Great. Mr. Williams, how about going to the microphone? And you can kind of introduce yourself at the center aisle? Yes. And from the interview, I don't mean to put you on the spot like this to send you to the microphone, but I didn't sense shyness. So I really didn't think that you'd mind doing that. So first of all, Malin, we did go through the process and you have been formally approved and accepted as our Director of Transportation. So
Thank you so much. I
congratulations there.
appreciate it.
And maybe you could just introduce yourself to the board and to our community that's here, and we'll go from there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malin Williams. I would have been here on time, but I was at whatever building and was lost and trying to get over here, so I found it. So that's a good thing about being transportation director. I've been in transportation 23 years. It'll be 23 years, July 27th. My last school district, I started in private schools in Seattle, Washington. I was born and raised in Detroit, and I made my way back here last year with COVID and everything like that, taking care of family. And I am very honored and to be a new employee at Chippewa Valley School District. I expect some exciting things to come forth, and I'm a very fun-loving person, so I want to thank you for the community welcoming me, for the board welcoming me, and I look forward to this summer and next year.
congratulations, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Now you're free to go back to Buchanan.
Yes, I drove 3.5 hours to get here.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going back.
Maybe we could have put you on the computer or something like that.
Oh.
So are we, Mr. Bednard, are we gonna just pause here for 1 second for those who have been appointed so that they, because like, I think about 5 of them have to go home and get to bed because they start tomorrow.
We do.
So,
Yes, we can take a 2-minute recess to let those folks get on their way. And thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Williams, thank you for making that trip.
Yeah,
Also,
thank
we
you.
welcome you to our district, and we look for you to carry on a great, safe transportation program we have in our district with great persons such as yourself leading the way. So welcome and thank you for coming to see. Thank
Yeah,
you,
we sure have a
all
lot
of
of.
our new employees, our
Mhm.
promoted employees, for taking time out to come visit with us tonight. Thank you. We'll take a 2-minute recess right now.
Okay.
2022 Appropriation Act for General and Special Revenue Funds. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions that that the following resolution be adopted by the Chippewa Valley Board of Education to approve the General Fund, Food Service Fund, Community Service Child Care Fund, International Academy of Macomb Fund, and the Student School Activity Fund budgets for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, and further requests that the reading of the resolution be waived.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Moved by Dr. Andriasco,
Support.
supported by Mr. Mixek. Rationale, please.
The Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act requires that governmental units, including school districts, adopt a budget prior to the start of the fiscal year. The 2021-22 budgets for the General Fund, Food Service Fund, Community Service Child Care Fund, International Academy of Macomb Fund, and the Student School Activity Fund have been prepared by the administration. The revenue budget for the General Fund has been developed using major factors including a decreased enrollment projection of 104 FTE based upon current staffing model, anticipated school aid increase of $164 per pupil, which brings us to $8,275 per pupil in the foundation allowance, a decrease of 2021 ESSER funds of about $10 million used in the 2021 school year, retirement cost offset revenue funds of an additional $1.5 million, and the review and adjustments of other revenue sources as appropriate. The expenditure budget for the general fund has been developed using major factors, including it assumes no increases for employee groups beyond the 2020-2021 school year. Again, we're negotiating as we speak. Decrease in net staffing changes, staffing wage changes of $3,643,077, mainly due to the retirements at the end of 2020-2021. Retirement cost offset expenditure funding of $1.5 million. Retirement rate is increased from 20.21 to 28.23%. Decrease in the 2020-2021 ESSER funds of about $10 million used in the 2020-2021 school year. Impact of the increased health insurance rates and increased hard cap limit under PA 152 for health insurance benefits and cash in lieu of health benefits, and the review and adjustments of other expenditure line items as appropriate. In summary, we have projected revenues of $172,594,455 and projected expenditures of $168,218,483 for a budgeted operating surplus of $4,375,972 and an increase in the fund balance.
Okay. This was reviewed with our finance subcommittee prior to tonight's meeting. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any questions or comments by the board? Ms. Aquino?
The fund equity of 31 million approximately, is that including the ESSER funds? No, it is not.
It does not include any ESSER funds moving forward. The ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds have not been allocated by the legislature and signed by the governor yet.
Okay.
So as of now, no. Once they are assigned and allocated, then obviously we'll incorporate those into our budget revision come October, November timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments by the board? Okay, very good. Hearing none, Ms. Patton, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Ms. Demink-Zek,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes,
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich,
Yes.
ayes all, motion carries.
Okay, excellent. H11, authorize year-end accounting procedures. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the business office to pay June bills prior to the July board meeting approval to facilitate year-end accounting activities.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Pyden,
Support.
support by Ms. Migzak. Rationale.
In order to facilitate the closing of the fiscal year, we request that the business office be given the authorization to pay and release bills prior to the July Board of Education meeting. This will allow the business office to release most of the 2021 checks prior to June 30th, 2021, decreasing audit time and the number of accounts payable entries. This deviation from normal procedures is only requested at the close of the fiscal year.
Questions or comments by the board? Hearing none, Ms. Pyden, roll call vote, please.
Myself, yes. Ms. Demink Zek?
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Ms. Aquino?
Yes.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich?
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, H12, adopt GSB 54 resolution. Mr. Sullivan.
The recommended motions of the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education adopt the following resolution approving compliance with GASB 54, designating commitment of fund balance in compliance with GASB 54, and authorizing the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations to make assignments of fund balance in compliance with GASB 54. Further request that the reading of the resolution be waived.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Quino,
I'll support.
support by Mr. Migzak. Rationale, please.
GASB issued standards on how fund balances to be classified and reported. Adoption of the resolution identifies the considerations related to GASB 54, designates committed fund balance, and gives authorization for designating assigned fund balance.
Questions or comments by the board? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Aquino?
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zek?
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich?
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Thank you. On to H13, approve school lunch branded pizza. Mr. Sutherland.
Recommended motions of the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve the below vendors for a 2-year contract with an option to renew on an annual basis for 4 additional years. Contract is to provide pizza delivery through the National School Lunch Program.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Pyden,
I'll support.
supported by Dr. Andriasco. Rationale, please.
Aggressive pricing was obtained through the public bidding process, RFB number 5.2122. The proposals were reviewed and approved by the Food Service and Purchasing Offices. Funding will come from the Food Service Fund.
Questions or comments by the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll have the roll call vote, please, Ms. Pyden.
Myself, yes. Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Ms. Aquino?
Yes.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zek?
Yes.
Mr. Vojtovich?
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Okay, excellent. H14, approved purchase of lamps and ballast. Mr. Sutherland.
The recommended motions of the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve Gray Bar for annual purchases of numerous types of electric lamps and ballasts, utilizing bid unit prices in the approximate amount of $44,000. This award also allows for 5 possible annual contract extensions.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Moved by Dr. Andriasco,
Support.
supported by Ms. Aquino. Rationale, please.
Aggressive pricing was obtained through the public bidding process, ITB 1.2122. The proposals were reviewed and approved by the custodial and purchasing offices. Funding will come from the general fund for this purchase.
Questions or comments by the board? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please.
Dr. Andriashko?
Yes.
Ms. Aquino?
Yes.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Ms. Demink Zek?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich?
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. H15, approved purchase of classroom cameras. Mr. Sutherland.
And last but not least, the recommended motion that the Chippewa Valley Schools Board of Education approve a contract award to Presidio in the amount of $827,642.10 for the purchase of 825 classroom cameras.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Minczak,
I'll support.
supported by Dr. Andriasco. Rationale, please.
Aggressive pricing was obtained through the public bid 4.2122. Funding will come from the 2021-22 general fund via ESSER funds.
Questions or comments by the board?
It's broken down by parts and labor. What's the labor?
Labor would be installed.
They are, so they're installed.
Correct.
Other questions, comments from the board?
So we are not, oh, I see why we're not taking a little better. Okay, thank you, because there was exceptions to the bid. All right.
Is there a warranty on these?
Pardon me?
I was asking if there was a warranty.
There is, I'm not sure of it. Sarah might know.
All right. Oh, Sarah?
Everything, the motors on the camera, because they're pan tilt zoom cameras, are a 3-year warranty. Everything else is a 5-year
I
warranty.
can't hear her.
Do we know when they would be installed?
Right now, there are several weeks of lead time. What we'll need to do, if it's approved by the board, is contact the installers and look at the timeline. We are hoping for a summer installation, but because it's a later bid, it probably won't be completed just in time for the school year. We'll have to see what delivery time on the cameras is.
And if that's an option, or if that's a problem, obviously we'll identify where we want to start first. In the areas, what levels we'll start first with.
Other comments or questions by the board?
In terms of there's quite a big difference in the bids. So we feel that Presidio's camera type is a quality camera and will perform the functions well. I see it's got a 359-degree rotation, so that's good. But
Yeah, it comes very well recommended. This is the exact camera that Richmond has adopted, and they recommend it highly in terms of ease of use and in terms of quality. So we've done some testing with it, and we're comfortable with it.
okay, thank you.
Questions, other questions or comments by the board? Okay, quite a big purchase for us. This is a new classroom camera that the board has decided to move forward with on the recommendation of our administration. We're working with our staff members to implement this new system of classroom cameras beginning this fall. So we're working towards that. This is a part of the project. So, okay, any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, Ms. Pyden, please.
Ms. Minczak,
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko,
Yes.
Ms. Aquino,
Yes.
Mr. Bednar.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Vojtovich.
Yes.
Ayes all, motion carries.
Good. Okay, that is the end of the new business for this evening. Next, we will move on to I from the community. As always, read the rules, comment rules before we start. We have a number of community members that have handed in slips to be able to speak tonight. But before we start, just a couple rules that we read before every community comment. First of all, each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes duration. As we know, I'll give you the 1-minute warning when we hit 4 minutes. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Complaints against identifiable school personnel may not be expressed in an open meeting. Such complaints should first be submitted in writing to the board and aired in open or closed session according to the wish of persons involved. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. Request assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of disorderly person when the person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. Waive these rules with the approval of the board when necessary for the protection of privacy or the administration of the board's business. Okay, so those are some of the ground rules we've had. Very good from the community comments. For the majority of the past year, very respectful, and we appreciate folks taking time to come out and talk to us. So with that, we will start tonight. I have, first off, I have, is it Premerv? Tracy Premerv, is that it? Primo, I'm sorry, yeah. Yes, please, please come on over to the podium and address the board.
Good evening, CVS board. Forgive my lack of knowing some of your protocols. I had some concerns that I wanted to understand and hear maybe directly from you. First off, I'd like to say I've had very good experience with the CVS school system. Always pleasant experiences with the staff and teachers, and you got dedicated, hardworking people. I wanted to understand the board's perspective from this critical race theory coming into our curriculum. Is that something that is going on? Can you speak to that? As a parent, I have some concerns with that.
It's a public comment, so it's not a question and answer period. It's just a comment you're addressing.
Okay. Okay. So that was my concern as a parent. I'm not really in support of divisive type curriculum, and that would be my opinion on it. So I wanted to voice that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming this evening and sharing your comments with our board. Okay, next up, we are going to have Mr. Terry Prince.
Mr. Bednar, if I could make a comment, because I don't want the last speaker to leave confused about the process, but if you submitted a slip, we will have your phone number and administration will reach out to you, okay? All right.
Good evening. I just wanted to make a quick point. We elect the Board of Education to represent the parents, and the Board of Education takes that oath. And I am curious as to why we continue to have a board member that has been habitually absent this calendar year. In the past 12 meetings, counting today, he has 7 absences, all as excused. I don't see that as representing the people that elected him. And as a parent in this district and a voter, I would like to know why he's not representing us at these meetings as he has been elected to do. And that's really all I have today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prince, for your comments this evening. Next up, Gene Kazmierczak. Kazmierczak, thanks for coming tonight. Please share your comments with the board.
Thank you. I've addressed this board in the past about communication and how I feel it's important that we all work together as a community to ensure that we're giving our children the best education possible. Communication comes in many forms, and while it's very difficult for us to have a one-on-one conversation, it's still important that we know where each other are coming from. 2 weeks ago, there were many parents and community members that addressed this board about a specific issue: the right for us as parents to make a decision about whether or not our children should wear masks to school. After the community comment portion of the board meeting, a member of the board asked for a motion to amend the agenda to allow for discussion on this topic, which then could have possibly led to a vote on the subject. While you may all have already determined that it didn't matter what any of our community members said, and that any discussion amongst the board wouldn't have changed your mind, it's still important that you communicate to us as a community your thoughts and reasoning behind your decisions. You had an opportunity last week to do that by amending the agenda. Instead, you decided you didn't have to tell us what you were thinking. By not even amending the agenda to discuss the topic 2 weeks ago, you basically said to all the concerned multiple community members that brought to you that night that it was not any of our concern, and that your silence tells me that you are telling us to just go pound sand. I may not agree with every decision that is made by you and the administration, but I should be able to have some understanding as to why you make the decisions you make, and I have none. The only thing that I was even mentioned 2 weeks ago by a single board member as to why you wouldn't change the mask policy is because you were just another distraction to the school year, which to me is a little bit laughable because you set the precedent for distractions at the start of the school year when just before the start of the year, you voted to change from in-person learning to fully remote. And there has been constant changes since then. This quote unquote distraction would have simply been an email out to the district families letting them know of a change. This wouldn't have required parents to change work schedules or arrange for supervision for their children or change in start and end times like every other change that has happened this year. At the end of all this, all I can say is I want to hear more from you. Far too often, I feel that when something is presented to you by the administration, the feedback or questions from you are almost non-existent, almost to the point of, why are you even up there? You are our voice. You are our elected officials to ensure our children receive the best possible education and that our tax dollars that fund it are spent wisely. We want to know what you are thinking. We want to hear from you. We may not always agree, and that's fine, but that's the great thing about this country. We can have a difference of opinions. But what we cannot have is an elected group of individuals just make decisions blindly for us without giving us any insight into their thought process. Please say more. Please ask more. I want to hear more than just yays or nays out of your mouths every 2 weeks. I want to hear you guys have several back and forth discussion about these issues. I want all of us to work together to help this community. I'll use an example of the classroom cameras you guys just voted on, $800,000. I'm assuming it's for live streaming capabilities, but no one said what we're even using these cameras for. No idea. I've noticed now this is the 4th week in a row, and now 7 out of 12 meetings this calendar year that the same member is absent. I know you do not have the power to remove the member. However, the governor of the state does. And while it probably hasn't happened in over 100 years that the governor has removed a board member, maybe it should be tried. You also have the ability to make comments about this issue. During these open meetings, this board member could address the community and explain their absences. You are in the middle of contract negotiations for our teachers, and you have been dealing with a pandemic all year. I can't believe that the rest of you are okay with a member not being present. Even though this member would probably vote the same exact way as the majority of you on every issue, and the board member usually only says 2 words every meeting, yay or nay, but still it is a missed opportunity for this community to have a voice on this board, a missed opportunity to have another individual give insight from the community. I guess so, with how silent you are and a majority of other things and other items, this is not important to you. And as a member of the community, I'm disappointed by this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczak, for your comments this evening. Okay, lastly, we have Ms. Samiza Terbovic. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Mr. Terbovic, thank you for coming this evening. Please share your comments with the board.
Dear CVS School Board, I am a father of 3 children that belong to this school district. As of last September, I pulled them out to sit back and watch our plan unfold on keeping our children educated. Unfortunately, in my eyes, for the past 15 months, I feel that you guys have failed. Even though I feel bad for the students that missed their graduations, proms, and all other events, let us not focus on the past and focus on this upcoming school year. Thank God all restrictions have been lifted because this was nothing but a political act, which is slowly but surely being proven. I do not wish to get into politics, which this school board has done by keeping our children masked, constantly tested, and even while playing sports, leaving them masked. I am kindly asking lift all those requirements and let the students be students and let us parents worry about our children and their well-being. That is our job, not yours. Your job is to teach our children and make sure they can make it in the real world and be able to function. Each and every one of you were voted in by us. As it stands right now, you'll probably be voted out and replaced with someone that will stand behind our children and their success. Following what the Michigan Health Department is saying, the unvaccinated children will constantly be tested per what they said June 9th. That will not happen, nor will I stand for that. I sat all this past year on the sidelines watching you folks struggle for our children to get an education. Teachers nor here nor there do not know where to start, where to continue. God bless each and every teacher that survived the past 15 months. I will not sit back quiet anymore. My voice will be heard, and my children, as well as others, will go to school to learn and not wonder what tomorrow is going to bring and what they must learn or study. As for critical race theories in schools, that is something that I am firmly against. That is the teaching of racism and division of races. I look at my children and watch them interact with others, whether it's at the park or elsewhere. They do not look at the color of skin or who's who. They look at who is going to play with them and run around. I know from experience, because my family went through 2 wars in my lifetime in the 90s. That was all just because of religion. At the end of the day, we are human, and that's that. Get that out of school curriculum. Please, let's leave this civil and lift the mask mandates, and let's not have this turn into a legal battle to give our children a great education. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tribovic, for your comments this evening. Okay, that will end our from community portion for tonight. Thank you all for coming and sharing these important messages to the board. Next up, we have J, Union Communication. Do we have any union leadership that'd like to address the board this evening? Okay, thank you. K, Administration Reports. Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, I do have a few items, so I'm going to do one of them down at that microphone, so I'm going to make my way there. And I would like Mary Ann to meet me there, please.
Oh, yeah.
Mary Ann may not like this, but that's okay. So when people retire from our school district, I think we have a wonderful tradition of recognizing those people. We do it in board meetings. This year's been a little bit different, just with the nature. And so some of that has been missed. And in fact, I've gone to buildings to do that, but Mary Ann was at a building that she was at the administration building while I was in her school. So I thought how to nab her right here. So we know we read a resolution, I like to read the resolution that gets read into the district record. Whereas Mary Ann Levine has served the Chippewa Valley School District faithfully and diligently for a period of 45 years as a teacher. And I would add many of those years were as president of the CVEA. Whereas Mary Ann Levine, through her leadership, has had a positive impact on the staff, students, and the community. Whereas Mary Ann Levine, a conscientious, loyal, hardworking employee, is elected to retire. And whereas Mary Ann Levine will be missed by all her school colleagues, now therefore it be resolved that the Board of Education of the Chippewa Valley School District, not only on their behalf, but also that of the superintendent of schools and the administration, extend their thanks and appreciation for a job well done, as well as best wishes for the future. Be it further resolved that this resolution, having been adopted by the Board of Education of the Chippewa Valley School District on the 30th day of June, 2021, be made a permanent part of the records of this school district, and a copy sent to Mary Ann Levine as an expression of our appreciation. So I want to add a few things here, and I think that maybe we have some viewers out here this evening too that I can help understand something. How many years have you led the association? 15 years association. In fact, Mary Ann and I began our careers, Mary Ann a little bit before me, but she got through college quicker, so she can say she's younger. Both at Clinton Valley Elementary. Mary Ann, I think at the time when I was there, you were a 4th grade teacher. I was a 1st grade teacher. So for the last 15 years, Mary Ann has been the leader of the teacher association. I'm not sure that people understand the importance and the difficulty of that job. It's important because a strong leadership with a teacher group that's about 850 members strong is really important to the health of the school district. The school district without that strong, effective leadership can be in a bit of more of a disarray. Mary Ann has really dedicated herself to representing her members and then representing their thoughts to us. That's an extremely difficult job because just like anything in life, people don't fit into one box. There's a continuum of beliefs even amongst teaching staff. So to be able to, and I think for 15 years is quite remarkable, to effectively understand that group of people and advocate for what teachers think is important is critical to the health of our school district. So I'd just personally like to thank Mary Ann for doing that for 15 years because it has made our district stronger. So once again, congratulations, Mary Ann. We have in here the resolution that I just read, which is framed, and a retirement bell. So I'll give you a hug.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, and if you would like to say a few words, you are. I'm going to shoot up there. All right.
I'd like to thank the board. It's been a great 45 years. I've enjoyed my time in the classroom and I've enjoyed my time working with administration to work together for the betterment of the school district. I enjoyed teaching kindergarten, 4th grade, and 5th grade over my career. And I've come to learn that it's the employees of this district that make this district great. The teachers come in every single day, as do all the other employees, and their only goal when they come into the school is to work for the children, to make sure that each and every child feels appreciated, and that is the best part of their day, whether they're the bus driver, the parapro, the clerical, the custodian. Each and every employee comes and does their best every day. Thank you.
Any questions or comments by the board?
I would just like to congratulate Mary Ann and hope she has a long and healthy retirement.
Yes.
Enjoys herself.
Questions or comments by the board? Yeah, I'd like to thank Ms. Levine and all our union leadership for this past year. We've had to work through get through many hurdles, over many hurdles, and we needed our staff to come along with us to get this job done. And we had that participation by our employees who did, as our parents know, an outstanding job this school year by and far to provide that education the best they could under these unforeseen circumstances that we dealt with this year. So I want to thank all our employees and our union members for working with our administration and our board to get through this school year. So I want to thank you. And Mrs. Levine, thank you for your leadership, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. You deserve it. Okay, Al, curriculum updates.
Oh, all right. I just have a few more administrative things. They kind of fall into curriculum a little bit too. One thing that we've been waiting for, and it's been mentioned here in past meetings, is some of our safety protocols and the direction of those right now for next year. We are expecting some guidance this week, maybe it's tomorrow. And then once we get that guidance on safety protocols, and I know there's a lot of different ideas floating around out there as what people think is going to happen or be recommended. And frankly, right now, I don't know what it's going to be. But we're expecting some guidance from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Now, we've been having discussions at the administrative level across the county because there are certain things we would like to see, but we really don't have anything, we don't contribute to that process. But what we will contribute to across our county is we'll contribute to that process once we receive that guidance, and we'll work with our health department. We certainly are hoping for a rollback of protocols, but until we see what they suggest and why they suggest it, and until we work with our health officials, that's kind of where we are. We're stuck right now. The first implementation of any protocols would be in our summer school program, which does not start till after the July 4th weekend, so we have a little bit of time. I also know, just from what I've experienced so far in the past year, is that these these protocols can really, they can shift, I mean, just as COVID shifts. So, I mean, right now is a really good point and things are looking good. So what I hope for is that as we go forward, the protocols can be adjusted accordingly. But I'll know more. And once I learn more, board, I will communicate with you about that and kind of let you know what I'm thinking and what thoughts are across the county. I would also like to just recognize the Board of Education for joining administration regarding the vision for technology in the school district. And I hope that going forward, that one of the improvements in our school district can just be the implementation of technology. So, you know, COVID forced our hand to go one-to-one, and the government supported it by providing ESSER's dollars to support the program. And now we're moving forward with not only more of a right size department related to technology, both the maintenance end of technology and implementation of it on just on a hardware basis and software, but also then the instructional end. And that's why we had 3 instructional technology coordinators this evening with 15,000 kids having computers now. It's a whole new ball game. And in order to support that and make the new learning valuable and worthwhile, that department needed to be right-sized. So thank you, Board of Education. I also want to make a comment this evening because I've heard it over the last few weeks. We've all heard it, and there's been a lot of talk about critical race theory. I had to do research. And I think sometimes when I've told people I had to do research, people outside of like the educational department, people look at me, well, why would you have to do research? You should know this stuff. I had to do research because in K-12, I had never heard of critical race theory. It's not a part of our vernacular. Critical race theory was developed in the 1970s by academic scholars. And so it's been around a long time, but it's been more at a higher level because critical race theory is really a lens at which you view occurrences in society and why we are where we are right now, what happened to us before. And so part of that is examining race issues. And that's been more at an academic level, not a K-12 level. So our social studies standards have nothing to do with critical race theory. They're based on Michigan standards. And as a public school district in the state of Michigan, we're required to teach Michigan standards. And critical race theory is not a part of those standards. Those standards are available online. They do not, Michigan standards and what we teach in school, because some of the messaging is about critical race theory being racist, Michigan state standards do not contain anti-American or racist themes in them. I mean, and our standards are available right online for people to view. Our board approved materials for social studies and the teaching of history, which we do at all 3 levels, do not contain anything in them that's anti-American or racist by design. Our curriculum and the learning is really based on settled facts, which are common things that we accept, both as regarding our society and our history. And so we really, in school, we ask our students, and this is such a vital role in social studies, is to really look at issues from multiple perspectives and to consider historical events. Because our role is really to teach kids to think critically and to think. And I think that's one of our proud American traditions is self-reflection. And that's what we do through our social studies standards. And I will be the first to tell you that some of the topics they discuss in history and social studies they're difficult topics. And our teachers are committed to creating a safe space in which kids can have these discussions. So I know right now there's a bill put out by the House, the Michigan House, which says we can't do certain things. And I'm sorry to see that about K-12. And I'm speaking on my experience in Chippewa Valley and what we teach and what we believe in. So it's almost as if the House bill is a distraction when we're dealing with so many important issues right now of just dealing with a pandemic and getting through that. And then I'm not sure, I can't speak to what goes on in other school districts, but I know in my network of people, things that are critical race theory, we kind of look at each other because that's not a part. It's never been a part of vernacular. It's never been part of our state standards. It's some of the topics they discuss are really difficult, but they're important the kids have those discussions. You must understand history in order to not repeat mistakes. And so that's my viewpoint on critical race theory for people who have said we shouldn't do it in school, we shouldn't practice critical race theory. I have good news. We're not. We are teaching to the Michigan state standards. So with that, that's my report this evening. That's both administration and curriculum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments this evening. We'll move on to M of and by the board. I'm sorry, Mrs. Mink, Zach, I'm sorry. I know you want to make some comments there. Please, please do.
I can do another by the board. So, Ron, going back to what you were first talking about, I didn't understand. I kind of felt like you were talking in code and we were talking about the safety measures. About what? And back to his safety measures that he was talking about. Okay. And there are students, CLP camp started today.
Safety
so they're wearing masks. So I guess I'm not sure what you're saying about masks for the summer.
Well, we're the latest. We're to the end of this school year, so we've remained with our current safety protocols. And what we're waiting for is the latest version of them from MDHSS, which we should have this week. So based on those, hopefully we'll make adjustments to what we have in place right now. There are other things out there that I'm hearing about for next school year related to testing and mask wearing and all those things. Those are the things that we've done this year to some degree. So we're waiting to hear what MDHSS is going to recommend for next year, how strongly they recommend them, and what our health department says about it. So, and what the practical experience is on the ground from the 21 school districts across the state. So we hope to, and for the CLP students, if they're continuing after we return from the July break, then maybe the safety protocols will be different by that time.
So even though as of tomorrow, so tomorrow they have to go to camp and wear their mask and then they can go to CVS or Target without their mask because it's open, because nobody has to wear a mask tomorrow. Right. I mean, that's just, I don't understand what they've already established their guidelines. What are we waiting for them to say for our students? I don't feel like, I just feel like it's really unfair to them that nobody else has to wear them except them when they go into a school building. I mean, even now they're supposed to wear it when they go to a store. Okay. But now I don't even know how to explain that to them. Of where this is just some arbitrary decision right now that they have to wear a mask.
Yeah, we've just continued to this point what we've done during the school year.
Well, I've been pretty clear since August about that, but so nobody really has an answer as to why they're still wearing a mask as of tomorrow.
Well, yes, and see what could happen is and I'm not saying this is the direction we have to go, but the recommendations may be from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services that we continue to do that through the summer. And since we've been doing it, I think in my mind, it makes sense to continue to do it until we change the direction, which could happen. And so we should know more tomorrow, and I have a meeting on Wednesday. assuming we get that tomorrow, but I was told that the new state guidelines on masks would come out tomorrow, and that it would be the summer school and initial guidelines for the start of the school year in September would be part of that.
So how will that be then communicated? Just because that won't be, I mean, that's not going to be a board decision. So will that just go out in an email?
I really haven't gotten that far yet, as far as, you know, once we decide what we're going to do, then I would alert the board, you know, this is our recommendation, and we'd go from there.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. We don't usually get alerted to this stuff. This isn't something that would come before the board. We've never voted on masks.
Well, I think we implemented the school safety guidelines last fall, which included that. Yeah, we'll make a recommendation to you.
When does summer school start? When does summer school start?
It started today for CLP.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't know that.
For the other students, I believe it starts after the July 4th week.
Okay.
What about our students that are fully vaccinated?
What about students? What?
Well, that could be part of the protocols that's recommended by MDHSS.
All right, and then I guess the other thing I think that we need to discuss, George, and I don't think that he would mind that.
What was that?
Do you want Frank or?
I'm sorry?
I think we need to discuss George's absence.
Oh.
I don't think he would mind if we did.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Mr. Soba did send us a memorandum, the board this past week regarding he's an essential worker in a hospital. They're short workers. He is a supervisor. They do not have supervisors, and they need him to be there at that hospital. And that's essentially it. This is supposed to be rectified in the short term, and he would be able to, again, attend our meetings. If not, he is going to resign. So I think that's kind of what he said to us in that memorandum. He's very apologetic to the community for not being present. But again, he's a frontline worker. So he sees his time being more important, saving lives out there in the hospital setting, being here right now, whether it's right or wrong. But he probably is very apologetic and is trying to rectify that. And again, in the short term, he should be returning. If not, he'll be stepping down.
Can I add something to that? I spoke with George at length this weekend, and he assured me that they're in the interview process to replace another supervisor that he is having to cover for right now. So within the next couple of weeks, that should get resolved. And that's what he's hoping for, because he said he misses being here with us and representing the community. So we're going to allow him. He's been on the board for 20-some years. What he's doing is not negligence. It's just a situation that he's trying to rectify. If he can't get it rectified, he will resign. And I don't think that's in the best interest of the school board at this point, but we'll see what happens. And I did ask him if he minded if I said something tonight about it, and he said no. So I'm glad Joe brought it up.
I'm done.
Okay, up and by the board.
Mr. President, I have a comment.
Vaitovich, yes.
Last week I sent out an email, and I don't know what happened. I wanted to have it put on the agenda, but it wasn't. I guess every day we're getting closer and closer to getting into the boardroom. And I just wanted to know what the status was on us continuing to broadcast, record, broadcast, whatever our board meetings.
Ms. Monier-White, can you speak to that for the board, please?
As the board requested, we did consult with a company, an audiovisual company we've worked with in the past. We put together a draft plan that involves 4 cameras being installed in the boardroom at the administration building, along with 2 monitors, 2 display monitors that would allow for remote access of board members when they couldn't attend in person. And that it involves 1 extra computer that would stream to YouTube like we're currently doing. So it'd be something that's much more streamlined than what we do here. The system we have here works, but it's not the best quality camera. It's not the best picture. And as you can see, it involves some setup, and in a smaller room like our boardroom there'd be really some tripping hazards, some visual, there'd be some impediments to people being able to see the board. So they did give us a price estimate on that system just based on our discussion. The estimated price came in just under $58,000. If that was something the board opted to do, we would obviously need to do a public bid and go through that process and open it up for other companies to bid on and offer other solutions to.
So should we take a vote to have this put out for a bid?
Is there anybody that objects to us taping and broadcasting our board meetings going forward once this equipment would be purchased? Any objections? Okay.
I just wondered if we could spend the money on the children instead of this.
Well, I understand. Can I just
Yeah,
respond?
go ahead, please.
I don't disagree with you. However, I think that our community does have an interest in what we're doing. And I think that in an effort to be transparent, and that I think we should spend the money personally. That's how I feel. It's been something that's been requested for many years. And I think that it would help if people could see our meetings, and I think it's worth spending the money from a community relations perspective, personally.
And I did all that. I think, this year and having our parents watch through that medium, through their Zoom or whatnot, that has brought a lot of people on board that had not had the opportunity to participate or at least see what goes on in their community boardroom. So I agree that it's time to make that. That's a small investment for good that could happen from it. So,
Mr. Bednard, I just have one comment,
Yeah.
and I guess one caveat into my thoughts on this is that if we're going to do this, we also need to look through the operations committee at our actual policies.
Yep.
In terms of participation and community participation and the like, as well as our own participation virtually. Because I don't think our policies right now allow for us, absent an emergency order, to participate virtually.
I don't think that's the intent, is it? Is that we would allow?
We're
for-
purchasing 2 monitors so we can do that.
Oh, I thought it was for the board. Okay, yeah, I don't.
That was suggested, just as I just had discussions with the other company. It is something we could easily remove from the proposal if the board's not comfortable with that. It's just something the company suggested would, given the last year, might be something we'd want to do, but we could easily remove those.
What's our?
I was gonna say, why doesn't this go to the technology committee for discussion and then be brought back to the board? I don't think anybody objects. I think it's more for people to view. I don't see it as a way for people to communicate with us without coming to our board meetings, personally.
That's why I think it should go through operations.
Oh,
not
operations
technology.
instead, that's fine. I think it should go to a committee and discussed, and I agree with Mr. Wojtovich that then we should have a motion. I mean, the committee can say, go ahead and place the bid, and then we can do the bid, and then we can award the bid. The only thing is are we gonna get that done? I mean, how long would it take us to get that done? Do we think?
Well, a bid process is at least probably 4 to 6 weeks. We'd probably want at least a week to a week and a half to make sure we write a proper bid and we have all the specifications covered. Then it has to be posted publicly for a certain amount of time. I'm not exactly sure what that is for this type of bid.
And then you have to review the bids and do post-bid interviews. So I would say it would be close to the end of the summer before we could even award a bid.
So we can continue with what we currently have until we can bid out an improved process unless COVID goes on the rise where people would have to come in person to talk to the board, correct?
Yeah, it's MASB.
That would be my preference.
Well, that's not even our preference, but I think that other entities allow their meetings to be televised and or streamed, but usually through YouTube and viewed after. And I think that's something I think as an operations group we should talk about. So, but I do support it. Mr. Wojtovich, I don't know if making a motion tonight, I mean, if you want to make a motion, I mean, I'll support that we look into it for sure. And perhaps, and proceed with it because I think it should be done.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that this is not going to happen overnight. I think we need to adjust our community comment board rules also through MASB, and we need to have operations on that, and we could bring that in with reviewing policy on these board meetings. So we could call for an operations committee. Mr. Wojtovich, you are on that committee, correct? The operations committee?
Yes.
So would that be acceptable for you to bring it to committee and then approve it in a board meeting, future board meeting? We're talking 4 to 6 weeks out if they bid right now to get the equipment.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we already agreed on this, so we would have to move pretty quick, in my opinion, unless we can use the equipment we're using now and then just put it all into play as it comes in. Would that be something we could do then?
If we move back to the boardroom at the administration building, we can do a setup similar to what we have here. We just have to be careful just because, again, in a smaller space, there's tripping hazards as people move around, but I'm sure we can make it work as a temporary solution.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd be good with that.
So we just do the operations committee prior to the next board meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is everybody agreeable with that? To review our policy regarding televised meetings, broadcast meetings, and our rules regarding that and rules for community comment. To go more with what Michigan Association of School Boards recommends. So be it. We will do that at our next meeting in July. Thank you.
So
Ms.
Scott's over here saying that he doesn't need a motion, he doesn't need board to get a bid. So do we want to direct him to get a bid on this?
I'm sorry, Jill, I can't hear you.
My speaker on. He doesn't need us to tell him. We don't need to approve a bid to get a bid. He can get the bids without us voting on it.
Oh, I see what you're
So
saying.
do we want him to get a bid on stuff?
Yeah, I think that's something that they could discuss perhaps if operations approves them, they could bring that into maybe a technology and we could run with this system now if it's approved until that could be purchased.
So does he get a bid now or wait until operations meets?
Well, I don't know.
We should wait because we'll
Because
know
we don't
exactly
know, we
what
want
we're
to make
bidding.
sure what we're bidding is what
Okay.
we end up needing in terms of equipment, I guess. At this point, I don't know what's required, so I support it 100%. How we process through that is different than saying, yes, I think we should do it. So whatever makes sense, is fine with me. When Mr. Sutherland says he can bid it, what would you be bidding, Mr. Sutherland? Is that what you just said? Is that what?
Yes. So
Okay, sorry.
what we would probably do is bid out exactly what Sarah said. We would create a base bid on exactly what we want. And then if from what I'm hearing, the interactive part is something that we still are debating, we can bid that as an alternate.
Oh,
And then you
that's
can
a good
decide whether
idea.
you want to accept it or not. So officially, to bid something, I don't need board action. To award something, I need board action.
Oh, okay, well then, I'd say we could go forward and then determine what equipment we can have an alternate bid to be included. I don't think anyone's going to want to have interactive, I don't think that's what,
I just think we should wait to bid till we know what we're bidding on, I guess. So this would run through operations. We have our plan in place on what this is going to look like, and then we're actually bidding what we're going to use. That just makes more sense to me
Well,
than running to bid because we want to bid because we want this fast.
I would agree because we do have a current system. If we didn't have a current system, I'd say maybe there's more of a, some to just go get this done, but we do have a system we can use till we make that purchase. So I agree with Ms. Pyden. in my
I don't know.
opinion,
I
that we
don't,
should
none of
see
us
through.
are gonna come up with a plan of what it is, so I don't know why. I think that's a little.
What was
Are we
that?
gonna, what are we gonna come up with a sound system, the plan of how to live stream? None of us know what we're talking about with that.
Well, I know, but I think that we do have an operation as to whether or not there's going to be like these extra monitors for participation virtually. We don't have a policy for that right now.
Right, but he's saying he could, whatever. I mean, if he's saying he could bid it both ways, so we're just putting it off for another month.
No, well, we're gonna do it. We're gonna go ahead and move forward with the current equipment we have.
Right, but.
I would
Okay,
agree.
whatever. It's
Can we just get the bid and then when we have the operations meeting, we just have a little more insight on, it doesn't cost anything for that.
I say we could go ahead and get the bid.
So.
I'm okay with getting the bid.
Everybody clear on that? So we're gonna move forward with equipment we have, and we're gonna review the policy and operations at our next meeting, and we'll review the equipment, and make forward a bid, perhaps for technology review, or depending on the price or what it's involved.
Right, and I would just ask that Ms. Monier White come to the operations committee meeting. So, that the technology is matching what our policy is.
Of course.
Any further comment by the board?
So we're going to put out for a bid, right?
Yeah, we're gonna bring back forward to next at that meeting, so what they recommend for purchase, and then depending on the policy of the board.
Okay.
So, okay, so we'll call that for the next meeting in July for operations subcommittee meeting to review that.
Are you done, Robert?
I'm sorry,
with your comments?
I missed that. What was that?
Are you all
Pardon?
set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, other by the board, other board members?
Okay, I have some comments, and I'm going to take my mask down a little bit. I've been vaccinated, and I know people can hear better. I kind of want to respond to some of the community comments for tonight. I think we addressed the Mr. Soba issue. I just wanted to tell Mr. Kazmierczak that I agree with him. We should have kind of explained to the community about the cameras. And typically, I do try to ask questions to let people know, but it has been a little bit different meetings in the last several months. And so some of the things that happened before, the explanations, the time to talk more, kind of have been the time has been taken up by other things, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's right. So I just want to say that I agree with him, and that we will make sure that we start to, or at least I will say that we'll have more discussion to be more and more forthcoming about like the cameras and why we'd be ordering them and whatever. My concern though is about the comments about CRT. I don't know where those are coming from. I mean, I know there's a national movement against CRT, but I'd like to know why somebody yelled out bullshit when we said we weren't teaching it. And I guess I don't want to talk back and forth. Email me. I would love to know where you think or why you think that we would even be considering it, and so that I can understand. Okay? Because I don't at this point. Because we have a person that works on diversity and is something that occurred after we did strategic planning 7 years ago. 7 years ago, we did strategic planning, which was a cross-section of our stakeholders, staff, parents, teachers, board members. And of course, when we talked about the cross-section, we included diverse people, different races, different cultures, different backgrounds, because that's important, because that is what exists in our world today. So part of that was that one of the results from that, or one of the goals from that, was that we, in no matter what way, and not necessarily about race, just about how people can feel that they can be authentic and they can our culture would be respectful of one another. And that was really why we hired the person, because that's what our community at that point said is what we needed, was some, people to focus on our culture and that how we can be inclusive to everyone. So I don't know where it's not a conspiracy, just telling you. You can believe it or not believe it, but it isn't. Thank you.
Other comments by the board? Mrs. Pyden.
I just have something, and I would just like to recognize the passing of a longtime teacher and retiree in our district, Mr. George Thayer. He had been in our district for quite a long time, was one of my favorite teachers, and he had passed away this week.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you for recognizing. Other questions, comments by the board?
Frank, I do have a question. I mean, one of the speakers did say something about the cameras, and it is a large amount of money that we approved. I don't know, how much can we explain on the cameras?
One, you could have asked questions or at least said to them, are you asking me or you just?
No, I'm just asking, I guess,
Oh.
as a general rule. I mean, Frank, I don't know if you'd know, I mean,
Yeah, no, have it. Oh, yeah, feel free to explain that.
I mean,
That's from cameras.
the cameras are in the room. It's obviously this last year has brought up the cameras to a totally different perspective. These cameras are expensive. They are good. They've been recommended by a lot. This is money that's going to be paid, from what I understand, out of the pandemic funds. And it's going to advance the school district in a lot of ways. It is based off of one mindset, but it's also going to allow a lot of interaction with students we have throughout Macomb County, from what I understand. Different avenues, different ways to teach. So it's not just a one item camera. This is hopefully going to help us advance with technology throughout the years. I don't know if that's really making sense. This is just kind of relaying what I know about them. They're good cameras, and they are going to help in more than one way. I hope that explains a little bit to the public.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, just as we said at the time, just an enhancement on the classroom cameras that we presently are using. We're going to a better system for our teachers and for our staff and for our students. So again, as Mr. Wojtowicz said, they were purchased through CARES Act money. They were not used, we did not use bond money for these cameras. So they were purchased through the federal government. We had a number of extra cameras that were purchased too. So if we lose cameras, we can bring others into play while those are being repaired. All right, what else? A couple things, I guess. And Bob, are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. All right, so Mr. Roberts, depending on what our restrictions are tomorrow, we'll be here, or if it is tomorrow, this week, we could be meeting, will we be meeting, planning on meeting back at our normal board room after this meeting, depending on what comes out, but if that be the plan, if the restrictions are lifted, if there's no mask wearing and so on?
Sorry. Okay, there it is. I just missed the first part of that. So if the restrictions are lifted, what? Well, I'm sorry.
If they this week or tomorrow, they come, MDHHS comes out and says no longer need to wear a mask indoors if you're vaccinated, period, any facility, would that facilitate a return to our boardroom?
Well, I can communicate with you about that. You can communicate individually with other board members, and that decision can be made.
Okay. All right. And while we're here, this board members, if that is the case and the mask mandate is relaxed, or how we want to say it, just maybe unvaccinated people are required to wear them indoors, is the board good with returning to our boardroom for our next meeting in July?
Yes.
Yes.
Jolene says she's not.
Okay.
100% transparency, honesty, what happened last time we were in this auditorium? That happens. I mean, we were threatened. We were threatened that people would come to our homes. We were called horrible names, and we were in a very large auditorium. And I have been in the board office before, in the boardroom, and I can't even imagine that happening in that board office. And it's total transparency. That's why I'm saying it has nothing to do with COVID. It has nothing to do with vaccines. Nada. It has to do with feeling unsafe.
Well, we're going to have to return eventually. I understand your concerns, but we're going to have to look at it. We have to go back to normal. But yeah, let's just see what things are.
Okay, well, we'll have further discussion on this, depending what comes out. Another thing I just wanted to mention too, during the summer meetings, we do relax our dress code, so to speak, with the board. If you want to wear jeans and maybe a polo shirt, we kind of move into a more casual approach through the summer months. And then back when students are back in school, we come back to more formal dress. So some of the board members did that. I came from work, or I would have put my polo shirt on also. But anyways, so I guess it's probably about it. So anything else from the board?
We got our meeting schedule for this summer, and I just wanted to publicly say I will not be here on August 23rd. Because, I guess I shouldn't say this, maybe people will get mad. I have Maroon 5 tickets. If anybody, I didn't know it was a board meeting night, so sorry, I'm going to go see them.
Okay. Very good. Okay, we'll move on from oven by to an executive session. Give a motion to go into executive session. Moved by Mr. McSink.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Wojtovich. Roll call vote, Ms. Pyden.
Ms. Demink-Zek.
Yes.
Mr. Wojtovich.
Yes.
Dr. Andriashko.
Yes.
Ms. Aquino.
Yes.
Mr. Bednard.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Ayes all. We're going into executive session at 8:19.
Okay, very good. Adjourned at 10:40 or 10:50. 10:50.
Got it.
Okay, we'll do it. Everybody have a good couple weeks here.
Yeah.
We'll speak again.
July
19th, yeah.